But at what cost?
There's no cost. People will buy it.
Well, there is cost because I'm annoyed on not another Sports Pod episode 48. Does that not count for something? Does this? When you think of the players, it's all about the players' health and this kind of thing. No, it's not. Because if it was about the players' health, you wouldn't be forcing these players to play 60, 70 games a season in the scorching heat in the US. You'd have it in a colder climate, or you wouldn't have it at all. So this is not. What niche financial advice would you give to our listeners? Something that you think might rocket in the next decade or two?
Oh, I know. Different looking football shirts that come out now that you say right now, buy it. Because in 20 years' time, that'll be worth 250 quid easily.
Hello, welcome. False start, let's go again. Hello and welcome along to Not Another Sports Pod, episode number 48 with myself, David, and Mr. Oliver Wilson. On the pod this week, Ollie, I want to talk about the Club World Cup. I've been watching South American football, as you have, for 5-6 years, and I just did not see this coming. I did not believe that South American football clubs were capable of this. Is it an anomaly, or have we got it wrong the entire time, and you're about to see the dominance of Brazilian and Argentine sides on the global stage? Let's also talk about Ollie Wilson's golf day as well. Let's kick off with that. I want to talk about Caitlin Clark. Why is she all over my algorithm, Ollie? Why is someone... I never watch basketball, never watch women's basketball, never watch male basketball. Why is Caitlin Clark all over my algorithm, all over my timeline, and why am I in love with her? Let's delve into that. Let's talk about tennis and Carlos Alcaraz winning at Queen's. But go on, mate, we've got to start with Ollie Wilson's golf day, because this week, Ollie, was it Wednesday or Thursday? Last week, sorry.
Thursday, yeah.
On Thursday, Ollie Wilson completed 100 holes of golf. He raised well over £1,000 for charity. And let's just take a moment to applaud Ollie Wilson's stubbornness, his commitment, his never say die spirit that embodies what once made this a great nation. And those attributes might actually be useful in the future, Ollie, if we do end up in World War III, that Ollie Wilson was just explaining the geopolitical conflict in the Middle East to me. Still don't get it. Let's talk sport. We're on safer ground. Ollie, 100 holes. Well done, mate.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you, man. Yeah, that is genuinely the toughest thing physically I've ever done. I used to do a lot of cycling, and I did a few of the 100-mile bike rides, and that is so easy compared to the 100 holes of golf. That was so tough. It was really fun though. It was great. We've raised almost $2,000 now. The target was 1,000, and I think we're on 1,960 or something like that. Leighton Buzzard Golf Club were really good in just providing some support, and I had a kind of my fiance's stepdad was out on a little 3-wheel motorbike golf buggy and kind of going up to groups further ahead and saying, "Can you move out the way a sec, just so you can carry on playing through?" Walked 64,000 steps, 31.7 miles, 8,000 calories burnt, and carried a full bag for the full 100 holes. And then the bag was put on the buggy for hole 101, but we did the 100 without. Yeah. And even to the point...
What was your start time, Ollie, just so people can grasp the scale of this in terms of timings?
So we teed off at 4:28 a.m. For the first hole. And a friend of mine joined me for that, which was really nice, actually. So I wasn't on my own at 4:30 in the morning, which was great. Like deer running all over the course and bird song in the air and the sun just starting to come up over the Chiltern Hills. It was beautiful. And then first round was about 2.5 hours. Second round did in just over 2. Third round was a bit slower. That was probably 2.5 hours again because I played with a mate for a few holes. And then the fourth round, I did a match against a friend of mine. So it took another 2.5. And then the last round and a half was just a slog. And I finished at about 6:40. No breaks, no stopping, no nothing. Literally finished the 18th hole, walked down to the first, tee off, go again. Was eating kind of on the course, filling up on water. It was the hottest day of the year, 33 degrees. Went to the bathroom once because I was so dehydrated. That was scary. When I realised that, I was like, oh my God, I've only been to the bathroom once today. And it was just, yeah. It was great. It was really fun.
Nuts,
and then the captain and people were on the balcony for the 10th hole, tees away from the balcony. And so a few people came down and watched me tee off and then watched me come down the 18th and got a round of applause and stuff. I felt like a hero, man. As close as I'll be to a rock star.
That's why. 2 questions for you, Ollie. Number 1, could this become a yearly event?
Not a chance. There's no way I want to do it.
Question number 2, my friend and listener of the pod, James, foolishly perhaps overcommitted in terms of his potential sponsorship for you. Are you prepared to cut a deal with him where he donates £5 to prostate cancer and you call it even?
Yeah, right, fine.
That's a generous man right there. Does his list of
because
positive
he didn't back me.
no
This is the
ends.
guy that didn't back me at all, isn't it? He was like, "You won't finish it. It'll be an extra pound a hole that you don't do, or something like that I have to give." Yeah, and to be honest, there wasn't a point that I got close. The weirdest thing was I had one of the best rounds of golf on the 5th round of golf that I played. It was only the last 10 holes that I couldn't swing and all that kind of stuff because I was really tired. But everything else was, the golf actually got better as the day went on, which was horrible because now if I play golf, I know that I have to if I can play 5 rounds of golf and shoot under 90, then I need to be able to, fresh as a daisy, I need to be shooting 75. I'm now disgusted with myself that my golf on a normal day is that poor. So
let me ask a very unfair question, Ollie. If you could go back in time in your life, right, and let's say you are 7 years old, but you have the emotional maturity of the age you are now, and would you say, I'm going to commit my entire life to becoming a professional golf player? I'm going to, let's say that money's not an issue and you can have as much coaching as you want, you can play as much as you want, you still got to go to school. Would you commit your entire life to becoming a pro golfer, and do you think you could have achieved it?
I don't think I could have achieved it.
Why? Just because the innate genius to become a pro level golfer is not there?
I think so. To kind of in a roundabout way answer it, I would have loved to have started playing golf and had lessons at an earlier age. Yeah, I didn't have a lesson until about 3 years ago, and I was up until I was 30 odd. It was generally just kind of self-taught, hacking around the place. I enjoyed it, but there was no technique or anything like that. If you take some golf lessons when you're a young kid, if you get a junior membership, which are really cheap, £100 a year or something like that at a club, then you can see the people that started early. They have a really nice golf swing because the technique's already down. But even then, it takes so much to get to a level where you can be a professional golfer. I mean, there's a chap on the DP World Tour that he goes around. He's just lost his DP World Tour card at the start of this year. And he can go around a normal course playing off the tips and shoot 6 under par quite comfortably. But the level that these competitions are set up at in terms of difficulty, and then taking in the pressure, the players around you that you're competing against, you need to be shooting 10 under par on most of these regular courses to have a chance of being a professional. So it's crazy difficult, but I do wish that I'd started from a younger age for sure. And it's the most pain I've been in, waking up the next day. My feet, the balls of my feet still hurt. The arch of my feet still hurts. My hamstring, I couldn't bend over to pick stuff up. It was so tight.
All right, we've heard enough about Ollie Wilson's golf then. Let's talk Club World Cup. Ollie, Club World Cup then. Have I got it wrong? I'm not going to drag you into this pit with me because it's probably me saying it more than you. But have I got this completely wrong about the South American sides? Because I've been watching South American football and covering the Copa Libertadores for years now. And whilst I deeply love the competition and think there's some incredible narratives and I love the mystique of the Boca Juniors and the River and the Flamengo and Fluminense, I never saw the quality that has been demonstrated in this Club World Cup against the big European sides. I never thought I'd see Botafogo beat Paris Saint-Germain, for example. I never thought I'd see these Brazilian, Argentine sides display the quality they've got, not just in terms of the football in the 90 minutes, but also in terms of the results. I mean, the fact that there are 6 South American sides in the competition, and 5 of them, it looks like, are going to qualify, with the exception being Boca Juniors, probably for the last 16. Why has this happened, Ollie? How has it happened? Or is it just an anomaly in the sense that we could go through World Cup results, mate, and we could say at the 2002 World Cup, Senegal beat France and South Korea beat Italy, and in the 2022 World Cup, Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. Those were random events in a knockout, in a big knockout competition. Is that more what's happening, or is it somewhere in between?
Dave, what part of the season are we in Brazil and Argentina right now? Are we at the start, the middle, or the end?
We are at the... Well, it depends which country you're talking about, Ollie, but in Brazil, we're at the start.
Yeah, and in Argentina they haven't started the Clausura yet. So Boca were in the quarterfinals of the Apertura. So we're in the middle. We're at the middle point of the Argentinian season, and we're at we're in the first third almost of the Brazilian season right now. And I think that's a big thing at this point for these clubs, in that Real Madrid, City, teams like that are coming into this competition, and it's tough because they're at the back end of a year playing this new competition with a lot of sides that, I don't know about you, but I personally didn't know the Mamelodi Sundowns, for instance. And I know that in some Premier League footballing circles, you'll end up with players that barely know like their next opposition when it comes to playing even on the Europa League level or on the continent level. So there will be some of these players from big European sides that I don't think are that fussed about the Club World Cup competition. First and foremost, at the end of a really long season, you're adding in a big summer tournament in a really abrasive heat in some of these games, and they're taking on opposition that they've either never heard of or won't have done too much research on, aside from the kind of generic game planning, etc. Whereas we know what the attitude is like for the South American sides when it comes to beating the top European teams in these global competitions. You know, Racing Club have a freaking
they won the
mosaic
previous
outside
iteration of champions of the world, if you like, back in the late 60s.
Yeah, and they have a mosaic outside the ground that commemorates them being world champions over European opposition. I mean, it's a huge deal for them because it's like younger brother syndrome, I think, with a lot of the South American sides, in that they're big in their areas, but they're not big on a global stage like your Man Cities, your Juventuses, your Real Madrids, etc. And they want to show that they can compete and actually look at the success we have on the international stage with Brazil and Argentina, and so look at the success we should be having as footballing nations at our club level as well. I also think, and this is a credit to South American football, I mean, the supporters of these South American clubs are saving this competition. And shout out as well to Wydad AC, who've gone out, the Moroccan side, who've also had some freaking manic flare displays. I mean, how they've got them through the US security at these games, I've got no idea. But, it's been raucous, the atmospheres. Whereas, we've seen Chelsea and Atlanta playing in front of about 6 people. It's not been the case at the South American sides games at all. Botafogo almost had 3/4 of the Rose Bowl the other day, kind of filled out. And that, I think, A, is a big importance for the competition, for the looks and the dynamic of it and the atmosphere of these games. And B, I think it's important for the players, that they actually feel like they've got a travelling supporting contingent behind them that helps them keep on going. And you kind of see a bit more of that connection between fan and club, even if the players are probably as removed from the fans as they are in European football. So I think there's a combination of things of where we are in the season with these South American sides, where the European players are mentally and at their campaigns at the moment, and then with the atmospheres that are kind of being generated around these South American teams' games, because it's great. I'm totally happy with the South American sides dominating this competition and being as good as they are right now. I think it's awesome. And I think it's probably what this competition needed more than anything else, because the last thing anybody wants is a European-dominated club World Cup where we just go, oh yeah, there we go. It's probably going to be a Premier League side or a Real Madrid that win this, or a Bayern Munich.
Well, it will be anyway. But yeah,
but we can dream at this point, though, can't we?
I'll tell you what, this is the happiest I've seen Ollie Wilson in a long time. It's amazing what 100 holes of golf will do to you.
It's because of that hole in the back of my neck. They put in an implant that has made me more chipper.
I agree with some of the caveats, right? But Botafogo beating Paris Saint-Germain by 1-0 and Flamengo beating Chelsea by 3-1. Those are still 2 isolated results, but those are showstoppers of results. Those are 2 unbelievable results. I've been talking about those 2 games for years and years to come, no matter what happens the rest of the competition. I think the real test here is when we get to the last 16, let's say 5 of those 6 South American clubs are there. What happens there next? Because that's when the European clubs, your Real Madrid and your Man Cities, that's when they look at that 100 million prize money for the winner. That's when there's no resting and rotating. It's the best 11s. So that'll be the moment, I think, in the knockout stages where we really see the quality of the South American clubs. I agree with you. I think it's absolutely fantastic for the tournament. I agree with you that it saved the tournament, because if we wanted to watch more European sides face each other, well, that's just the Champions League, isn't it? So we absolutely need that. I think it's also interesting, Ollie, how when you look at the Brazilian sides, and let's be honest, yes, it's fun watching River and Boca, but realistically, the quality here is Flamengo, Botafogo, and Palmeiras. What is absolutely unbelievable in a world where there's so much football broadcasted around the world, there is no English language commentary for the Brazilian domestic league. It doesn't go out anywhere. And that, I think, is absolutely incredible. Not just because Brazil has a population of whatever it is, 250 million people, not just that there's millions and millions of Brazilians now live abroad and second-generation Brazilians all over Europe and the US and Australia and everywhere, but just the fact that they haven't found a way, and I'm going to blame the Brazilian Football Federation and the clubs, because collectively, to not find a way to broadcast and monetize that product is simply astonishing. And the Premier League, for all its faults, the way the Premier League managed to market the Premier League as a global force, it should be studied for years and decades, and will be studied for years and decades to come.
The Brazilian League is one of the more exciting ones. There's maybe 4 positions that mean nothing in the Brazilian League, and everything else has either international football or relegation riding on it, and it's bonkers in that sense, and it should be on a global audience and a global stage.
Let's talk about Messi's energy drink. Mass by Messi. That's not his idea, Ollie. He needs to fire his agent immediately. And when I saw the Mass by Messi, it did strike me as similar to the Dame Judi Dench's Money Supermarket advert. And I remember when I saw that. Have you seen that Judi Dench?
No.
Money Supermarket advert? I mean, it's not specific to her. There's so many, I think, celebrities now that just put their names to sort of random stuff. And, like, Judi Dench, like, she was in 7 Bond films. She won an Oscar. Like, she's a dame, and she's shilling Money Supermarket adverts. And it did strike me as like the energy drink industry. First of all, the one thing the world does not need, I can categorically say, the one thing the world is not lacking is more energy drink brands.
I don't think we're stimulated enough, though, Dave.
Our dopamine receptors have been hacked. Like, it's over. Also, if you want to drink water. Or if you want to be fired up, drink coffee. Or drink Red Bull, because at least they were the OGs. Everyone else, like, you're a fraud. You're a joke. Like, why are you creating random energy drinks and putting it into the market? Don't tell me that Messi wakes up one day and decides that his great idea for the world is to have an energy drink. Not picking on Messi, because, like, Ronaldo's got an energy drink as well. I just don't really get why Messi's got an energy drink. I don't understand why these people with untold wealth are just shilling crap.
Because it's a way to create more wealth.
But at what cost?
There's no cost. People will buy it.
Well, there is cost, because I'm annoyed on Not Another Sports Pod episode 48, Ollie. Does that not count for something? Because Cristiano Ronaldo replaced a bottle of Coke with a bottle of water in a press conference 8 years ago and said, drink water, don't drink Coke. And Messi has brought out an energy drink. Are you suddenly now Team Ronaldo over Team Messi? Is that what you're saying in terms of the greatest footballers of all time? Does that change your opinion? I'm saying that I do not rate any footballer that puts their name to an energy drink, because they know, and we know, and sports scientists know, and nutritionists know, that an energy drink has no value. Like, it has no value. It has no long-term nutritional value or benefit. And in a world plagued by obesity, I just don't understand how you can...
David Beckham advertised Pepsi for years, not even sugar-free Pepsi at times. It was regular Pepsi. Footballers have advertised Coke and Pepsi for decades now, but never batted an eyelid. Even though those are loaded with sugar, they're a huge part of the obesity endemic that we have around the Western world. Why is an energy drink any different then to
well, mate, I don't like Gary Lineker shilling Walker's crisps. But I essentially think that you're only allowed to sell stuff that is calibrated to your brand. So, for example, if Messi is selling like a brand of mate, I think that's way more understandable, because Messi obviously does drink mate, I would guess, right? So that is like who you are, but shilling some like random chemical energy drink. And yes, I've read the 0 calorie, 0 sugar stuff, but come on, guys.
George Foreman had a grill, mate, and that was considered. George Foreman had a grill, a lean, mean grilling machine.
But that's fine though. That's fine, mate, because a grill is not inherently like.
It's got nothing to do with boxing.
World. A grill is you're grilling whole foods.
Yeah, but you said you should be shilling something that is associated to you. Now, what the George Foreman and the association between boxing and a grill?
There's protein in meat, which helps you as a boxer.
And Messi is a footballer who's running around on the pitch and is drinking electrolytes, Lucozades, and sugar-free.
He's not drinking his own
boosts.
energy drink, mate.
I'm not saying he's drinking his own energy drink, but he's drinking some sort of energy drink. He's not just drinking water down there on the field. He's drinking like SIS Sports Science compound that is electrolytes, glucose, carbohydrates, protein, and water. And but it's all coming with like a Lucozade bottle or a Powerade bottle on the side of it, and that's.
I can't speak for other countries, but if you walk into a British supermarket, it is astonishing how many energy drinks there are. And you could say the market's saturated, but obviously it isn't, because people have done their market research. They've looked at these 17 different brands of energy drinks and thought, yeah, I'll have a slice of that market. And maybe Ollie Wilson is the target market. What's your energy drink of choice, mate?
I don't drink them. I don't drink them at all.
Not even partial to a Lucozade on hole number 76?
No, I'll take I take the electrolytes tablets with me and put them in my water. I don't drink them because I think they're all pretty gross, to be honest. I mean, I used to like, when I was hungover, have like a raspberry Lucozade or something, but it would always try and be the 0 sugar. Even when I'm in the US, like I'll get the vitamin water, but I'll pour a quarter of it into a water bottle and fill it up with water because it's so sweet and sugary.
Body's a temple.
But
it's just to clarify, my issue isn't with people drinking energy drinks, right? It's a free market. I'm more libertarian leaning. Like, I support people's right to eat donuts and have 7 Red Bulls a day. I genuinely do. My issue here is with someone like a Messi or Ronaldo selling an energy drink. I just don't rate it. And the same as I say, Judi Dench, like with a money supermarket.
I mean, aside from buying a football club, which also seems to be the easiest way for people to invest their money or buy houses, the energy drink. I mean, do you remember when Prime came out? I mean, I was chatting with a co-commentator was telling me how he found a bottle of Prime energy drink when it first came out on a shelf for like £7 because the demand was so insane, and his son was running around the kitchen elated with the fact that his dad had found a bottle of, is it KSI or one of the Paul brothers, or is it both of them? It's some YouTuber, and those are the only like 2 that I know really, but was so elated with the fact that like they had their hands on the energy drink of their favorite YouTuber. I mean, it's a huge kind of pull if you can put your name and brand it correctly.
In 2024, by the way, Prime in the UK, because I was reading about this yesterday.
I don't. I'm going to guess like 40 million.
They made £312,000.
Is that all?
That is all they made. The net profit went down by 91.6%. In 2023, they had a £3.7 million profit. This is just the UK Amazon Prime, whatever, to £312,000.
Yeah.
So they don't make any money from it. Is it just a brand recognition thing?
Yeah, I guess it's now
because 312 grand is like they make that from one video. So there's no. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just a Scrooge and energy drinks to the future, and we should all get. I mean, when's Not Another Sports Pod energy drink coming out?
I think it's more to the point. Every single athlete has put their name to like weird products and advertised weird stuff anyway. And like you can talk about the energy drink kind of market probably does more detrimental harm to young kids or something like that, but so did video games, and Chris Kamara football was there back in the day. You know what I mean? Like those things have existed. Chris Kamara had a football video game back when we were young kids.
I don't see any problem with that. Anyway, I've ranted too long about the energy drinks. Let's go through a couple of more unusual things that have come out of the Club World Cup. The Juve players standing behind Donald Trump as he talks about whatever he was talking about, Iran,
the potential
Israel,
bombing
like
of the Middle East, and asking them, would the women be able to play in your games? That was weird. That was so weird and awkward. Like, and them answering with, well, we've got a good women's team. Yeah, but they wouldn't be able to play in your games, would they? It's like, cheers, Donald. Just smile and nod, boys. I mean, every team that goes to the White House now, whether it's a US sports franchise that's won a tournament or anything like this, have all just become the Madagascar Penguins of standing behind Trump with somebody just going, just smile and wave, boys, smile and wave. Because that's all you can do. If you get invited, you just take the invite, you let him waffle on about all his mental things that he wants to talk about, and then you just leave. It's the same as the Infantino and Trump video with Infantino showing him how to unlock the trophy. Which also, by the way, if you've got this trophy, the way it unlocks is like a shit Toys R Us toy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't open and like they all move in a really smooth kind of gliding fashion, all these rings to create what the trophy looks like when it's been unlocked. They have to like, all right, just pull this bit and make sure the kid's got it stuck and there's chewing gum on there and it's horribly awkward.
I think I said before a hologram, but I'm going to change that. I actually don't hate the trophy changing before it gets lifted. Like, I don't hate that. I don't hate the idea, Ollie, of a trophy being like a set structure and then it changing before like the winner raises it. But my idea would be, in the final, you have the trophy somewhere visible in the ground, like maybe even hovering above the pitch. And then it changes according to who's scoring. So let's say Real Madrid are 3-0 up against River Plate in the final. And like the trophy could start to change and, I don't know, start to sort of become the finished article. And then like River score once.
It starts to
changes
close
a little bit more. And then maybe, Ollie, when the full-time whistle goes, like, I don't know, it goes, there's like flames around it and it finalises in its final form. That would be a nice low-key way of doing it.
Are you getting inspired by Disney's Beauty and the Beast? And what happens is every time a team scores...
I've never seen a Disney film, so I don't know what that is.
You've never seen a Disney film?
Don't think so, mate.
I mean, I've not seen Beauty and the Beast since I was about 8 years old. But it's all about, like, there's a glass that's got a flower in it, and every so often a petal falls off the flower, and if the beast doesn't find his true love by the time all the petals fall off, he stays as a beast or something like that. So basically what you want is a flower that sheds a petal every time a team scores or as the game goes on, and then at the full-time whistle it reblooms into the colour of the winning team.
I mean, that would work for me.
That would look better.
Infantino with the key.
Yeah, that would look better than what we have right now at the FIFA Club World Cup. Yeah. I mean, have you watched much of it, Dave? I mean, you still, is it?
I watched Flamengo beat Chelsea, and I couldn't believe what I was watching, Ollie, because I've watched a lot of Flamengo in the Libertadores this year, and Ollie, they scraped into the knockout stages of the Copa Libertadores this year. And Flamengo, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, they're one of the biggest football clubs in South America, massive fan base in Brazil. They play at the Maracanã, massive wages. This is a big, big football club. They were horrendous in the Libertadores group stages. And I know people will say, oh, yeah, they always are, but they always get the job done and go through, kind of like Real Madrid in the Champions League. But they were still awful. So to watch them beat Chelsea and beat them well, 3-1, was surprising to me and made me question quite a few things about what I know about the beautiful game.
I mean...
So, yeah, I watched that. I think I watched a little bit. I watched a bit of other games. I mean, I'll really pick it up in the knockout stages probably.
I mean, from what you saw though, was it a different Flamengo side or was it a poor Chelsea side?
It's always hard to say, isn't it? Especially when you're not at the ground. I think like on telly, that's a really hard thing to kind of pick up on. I would suggest it's a poor. It's somewhere in between, like it always is. But I mean, some of those Flamengo players are producing. I mean, for example, Bruno Henrique, who we absolutely loved in 2019. He's a Flamengo forward, kind of plays high on that left-hand side. And Ollie and I watched him in his pomp in like 2019, early 2020. Magnificent footballer. Incredible he never really had a good stint in Europe. But now he's 34, nearly 35. But he comes off the bench and changes the game and wins it essentially for Flamengo. So to see that was incredible. To watch Gerson, who it didn't quite work out for him in Europe, like dominate the game. To watch David Ollie, who plays when he fancies it in Brazil, and all of a sudden he's like running back and challenging and doing stuff I've never seen David Ollie do. It was surprising at a different level. Plus you chuck in the fact that Flamengo signed Jorginho, right? And so you sit Jorginho in the centre of the park next to Gerson, and it all ties in pretty nicely and looks good. So yeah, I have watched a bit of it, and what can you say? The South American sides are the story in the competition so far, Ollie.
Yeah. I think it's good in terms of it's what the competition needed. Even if the whole competition just ends up being a Europe versus South America thing, as long as it's competitive and not just between the European sides, it will definitely pique my interest once the knockout stages get going.
Let me ask one more question. This is about it's hot in America at the moment, right? Some states more than others, but it's warm. So there's a cooling break, a drinks break, which I personally don't like, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But we also saw that Borussia Dortmund's bench watched their Club World Cup match from the locker room. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah,
so they weren't exposed to
hot.
the heat.
Yeah.
And my issue here is that the sharpest end, the pinnacle of professional football, is supposed to be unbelievably, incomprehensibly difficult. That's why you or I can't do it. So to perform and to compete at the highest level, you're supposed to be a superhuman. You're supposed to be something so beyond the paradigm of what you and I and the average punter could understand. You can withstand all these things. So a cooling break halfway through each half, to me, is absolutely absurd. It's professional sport. It is supposed to be impossibly difficult. That's the entire point. And I can see now in the comments underneath someone saying, won't you think of the players? It's all about the players' health and this kind of thing. No, it's not. Because if it was about the players' health, you wouldn't be forcing these players to play 60, 70 games a season in the scorching heat in the US. You'd have it in a colder climate, or you wouldn't have it at all. So this is not about the players' health. And for me, the cooling breaks and the drinks breaks, they're just another addition to the sport that slows things down. They're just another Americanization of the beautiful game. It's another way to dilute from the spontaneity and the fluidity and the instant impact of sport in the way that VAR has done, the way that 5 substitutions has done, etc., etc. So I don't like the cooling break, the drinks break. If you can't handle it, go and find another sport, because this is what football is. You play for 45 minutes. That is how the game is, and I don't rate it at all.
Also, they're probably taking on energy drinks while they're doing that drinks break, which is another reason why Dave wins it.
Mass by Messi. Yeah. I mean, they wouldn't get it. In fact, they missed a trick there, Ollie. In these cooling breaks, the only liquid you should be able to consume is Mass by Messi. That is the logical play here, surely.
Well, the logical play would have been, if you're going to name any drink Mass by Messi, it should have been like a protein weight gain drink. Mass by Messi. You know, get the power of the greatest footballer around. You know, that stocky, strong power that Messi always had. Not an energy drink.
I mean, it needs another S in there, but you could potentially, I think Messi, even though he's a slight man, could release a protein powder, Mass by Messi. In fact, that could be a whole thing, couldn't it? The Mass by Messi brand. I mean, what else could we come up with?
But anyway, back to... I understand that the energy drink break is probably needed to some extent for...
Why?
Hydration, because it's brutal. Playing in like 35 degrees.
That's the whole point of the sport.
It's tough, mate, but you can't just dehydrate somebody to the point. I would rather have a drinks break and then have players actually able to run around a bit and move than getting what you could sometimes get back in World Cups, which was like players just walking and slow pace football because the heat is so bad. Now, what actually should have happened is you shouldn't be having this competition either in daylight hours, so at least all games are played when the sun goes down. If that means you have clashes, that means you have clashes, or you host it in a southern hemisphere country rather than hosting it in the US as the cash grab. Take this competition. Wouldn't this have been great in Australia and New Zealand? Like a place that doesn't really get major football at all. And I could have imagined...
In their winter as well would have been nice.
Yeah. Australia and New Zealand genuinely being like massively excited and filling out these stadiums way more.
Why not in South America? Like, this could have been played in South America in their winter, and people obviously think South America is always hot all the time. It's not. Like, Buenos Aires is probably like 10 degrees today. It's the heart of their winter. So you could have done it in South America. I know, infrastructure, money, I get it all, but it could have been doable. And imagine that, Boca and River playing in their home grounds.
Yeah. But I just think, again, it will always boil down to money. That's just going to be the case of it. But if you're playing in those conditions, you do have to allow the players the opportunity to hydrate, to be able to keep going, because at the end of the day... Why
not have a break every 10 minutes then, Ollie? Because it's really hot, so like if they have a break every 10 minutes, they get more fluid on board, and they'll be even sharper and even faster, right? Because
we're finding the happy middle ground of not making the game as disjointed. Now, what could be allowed is every time there's a sodding VAR check, the players can go over and take on water. Because we have... That would be the way, that if you're having a VAR check, both sets of players just go over to their benches straight away. As soon as the referee does that, go over to their benches, they can hydrate and do all that.
They can, but as soon as the referee blows the whistle, you play on regardless. So VAR check, you get your drinks on board, but as soon as the referee says cleared, no penalty, and after he's announced it to the stadium, which they do now, which I don't really like, but we can get to that if you want. After he's done that, immediately the drinks break is over.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're still, when everybody else is leaving the pub and you're still trying to down your pint before you go to the next one, and you're kind of pouring it over your face or whatever, it's just go. That would be the way to do it, yeah.
Right, we've covered some very interesting opening 45 minutes, I think, to Not Another Sports Pod this week, Ollie. Let us, or 38 minutes, I should say, let us talk about any other business. Well, Caitlin Clark. I want to... Yeah, Ollie, go for it.
Well, don't we want to stick with the football and England's under-21s?
Oh, apologies. Let's talk about England under-21s that are in the semi-finals of the under-21 championships, play the Netherlands on Wednesday, I believe, beat Spain in the quarterfinals. What does it mean, Ollie, if anything, for the under-21s to be playing as they are, individually and collectively?
I think collectively it's great in terms of it shows that we do have a lot of good youngsters that can compete with some of the best youngsters in the world. In European football, at least at this point, which is always promising for what's potentially going to come ahead. Even if I think at this point in football, a 21-year-old that isn't breaking through into potentially national teams and stuff like that, there is always then the question mark of is it maybe going to happen? Just because an 18-year-old will break into an international senior side now, and that seems to be just a regular occurrence. There are some players in the Spanish, Portuguese, French sides that have already broken into their senior international teams and have 6-8 caps under their belt already, but still playing in this competition. Whereas when you look through that England squad, there aren't many that you'd say would be knocking down a door for a spot in a regular international England game. So that's maybe looking at it with rose-tinted glasses, so to speak. But I think it's great. I think it's still, it's a major European competition. England seem to be playing pretty decent football. They were very good against Spain in the quarterfinal. A Spain side that much fancied favourites, that know how to move the ball around, and England kind of played them at their own game a fair bit. And I don't know. Lee Carsey took a lot of criticism when he was the England manager and brought in a lot of these youngsters and gave some a chance with the senior side. There are a few people that would say he's not played the game at a high level, so there might be better options out there. But if you go and win back, yeah.
Mate, he played a lot of Premier League football for Everton.
Yeah, but not at the top level.
He didn't win the Champions League, no.
So, and I'll tell you how we'll talk about it off pod if you want. But yeah, and I think it's winning back-to-back under-21 European Championships is an incredible achievement for any manager. And
if he can do it, obviously.
Yeah, if he can do it. But if they do it, would it change your perspective of maybe him taking the top job at some point?
I think that Spain and what they've done and other nations, I do think it's a good model for the manager of the national team to have previously coached the under-21s. I actually think it's a really good model. Just puts that figure in the federation, gives them a grounding in it all, an appreciation of the players, an appreciation of the media side of it, and then I think that step ladder from under-21s coach to national team coach, which has been very successful, by the way, with other nations, Spain included, over the years. I do think that makes perfect sense. If you're going to go with a manager from your nation, which obviously England sort of has strayed away from in recent years. So I do think there's great validity to it. I don't think Lee Carsey's ever going to be the England manager. Mainly because he just doesn't fit what the FA want in terms of how he looks in a suit and how he speaks to the media rather than anything he's actually demonstrated as under-21 manager.
Which is ridiculous if that's the reason why he doesn't get
opportunity. But back to the old marketing's more important than product kind of thing, I think. Sort of the world we live in. But, the quarterfinal is hugely exciting. Germany beating Italy 3-2, France beating Denmark 3-2, England beating Spain 3-1, Dutch knocking out Portugal 1-0. So, yeah, the semis of England, the Netherlands, Germany, France should be exciting. What does it mean? I don't know. I think there's an odd thing because you need to be 21 at a certain time in the qualification process, and then you have players that are like 22 or 23 even competing in this tournament, which is unusual. But, yeah.
Well, the Dutch, in fairness as well, they were down to 10 men after 20 minutes in that game against Portugal. So that was like a proper smash and grab type deal. Mark Van Bommel's son, sent off after 21 minutes for a second bookable offence, just stupid. And then sat in, and Portugal got this young...
Bommel, by the way. I haven't thought about that name in a while. I think some of our younger listeners will go over their heads, but yeah, wow.
But he put the Netherlands on the back foot. Chelsea's new £60 million signing, Giovanni Kenda, who there was a lot of deliberation about his name because somebody called him Quenda on a broadcast. And I was like, I don't think that's right. And Kenda is his name. Kind of looks the dog's bollocks. You want to talk about an exciting teenager? He looks sensational. But with 10 men behind the ball, the Dutch just sat in and held off. It was a proper smash and grab type thing. And then ended up scoring late. And it will be tough for England, I think, that semi-final, because...
Did you cover it, Ollie?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say, otherwise that's an obscene amount of knowledge.
Yeah, I just started the under-21
quarter final being played in the summer.
No, yeah, I was doing that for Channel 4. Michael Reisiger, if you remember that name as well, was the Dutch manager.
Was he at Fulham?
I don't know if he had it. Yeah, he had his spell at Fulham, but it was more. He was.
I remember him in the Premier League for someone.
Oh, he's Middlesbrough. That was it. Yeah,
Middlesbrough. Wow.
Yeah, but it was more his time at Barca that he's kind of renowned for, isn't it?
Let's move on then to any other business.
Yeah, come on then. I want to hear your women's basketball. Caitlin
Well, it's
Clark.
just unusual to me because, as I say, I have never really watched basketball in this country, in the US, anywhere. I covered a bit of EuroLeague back in the day, really enjoyed it, but my knowledge of basketball is close to zero. I don't quite know why the algorithm will be pushing Caitlin Clark in my direction, but Caitlin Clark, as I understand it, Ollie Wilson will know more than me, is like the star of the women's NBA, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And why is she so prominent on the socials? Why has she been pedestalized like this? Is it just because she's that good and she's the best in the game? Is it her personality? Is it a social media attraction? Is it because it's massive in the US? Like, why is this lady become so famous?
So she was amazing in college, and women's college basketball in particular, because they have a March Madness tournament at the same time as the men's college basketball. So women's college basketball gains a lot of traction in that March Madness kind of period because everybody is watching March Madness in the US because the NFL season's just finished. The NBA and the NHL haven't quite got to their playoffs yet, and baseball hasn't really got going either. So March Madness with the college basketball fills that void. It's a big gambling month as well. Loads of money gets put on March Madness in both the men's and women's tournaments. And Caitlin Clark was amazing at Iowa State. I think they won a national title in her second to last year in the college. And then the year after that, Iowa State play LSU in the women's college final national championship game. And Angel Reese is playing for LSU. And LSU end up winning. Angel Reese starts giving Caitlin Clark this like pointing at the ring finger, being like, you ain't getting this one this year kind of thing. Yeah, getting right up in her face and all this kind of stuff. And this moment sparked the Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark kind of storyline, which when they both got drafted in the same year going into the WNBA, has taken off in the last year and a half, like massively, because Caitlin Clark is the WNBA's Michael Jordan, without a doubt. She is a really, really good basketball player. She made the WNBA All-Star team in her rookie year. She is, without a doubt, one of the most high-profile players due to her college success and immediately putting that into the WNBA. She's one of the best shooters in the league. She's great as a distributor. She's unbelievably talented in terms of like the next level of women's basketball. And her games average at least, I think it's something like 10,000 more fans come to games with Caitlin Clark in. However, this rivalry with Angel Reese, and Angel Reese made a big profile for herself as being kind of the villain in that college basketball game right at the end. She became very much a big, well-known face nationally. Also for her basketball success in college as well, obviously. She's kind of come into the league and played up to almost the villain role in some sense. And she's been saying things like, the WNBA isn't just getting the highest profile views that we've ever had as a sport because of Caitlin Clark. It's watched for at least two reasons, and I'm one of them. And that's just not true because she plays for like the Chicago Sky, I think it is. And they get an average of 7,000 to 9,000 fans a game at their home games. But when Caitlin Clark came to town, they got 17,000 fans at their home game, which just shows that the draw isn't Angel Reese. The draw is Caitlin Clark at this point. But there are people in the WNBA that don't like this. For some reason, the WNBA is a league, and a lot of the players don't want to admit that the eyeballs and attention that the WNBA is getting isn't just because of Caitlin Clark. It's like they want to spread the love around and not make her the face of the league, which seems massively detrimental to the league as a whole when you look at what other sports have done, particularly in the US. You know, the NFL had Tom Brady for 2 decades as the face of the NFL, a face that transcended the sport, was known pretty well globally. Basketball had Michael Jordan, and just as Jordan's era came to an end, they went and pushed LeBron James massively. And in fairness, when James first stepped into the league, there were a lot of older players that said a high school player isn't going to be running the league from the word go. He's going to struggle. He's playing with men, not boys, all that kind of stuff. But LeBron James silenced those critics and was impactful with Cleveland straight away. And because he was so young and the next generational talent, the NBA pushed him as a face and promoted him. And that's been a great thing, obviously, for the NBA for the last 20 years. The NHL did the same with Gretzky, then Sid the Kid in terms of Sidney Crosby. Now at the moment, it's kind of Connor McDavid, but there are a few others as well that are kind of leading that face of the sport at this point. And the WNBA needs to keep pushing Caitlin Clark around because she missed 6-8 games recently through injury, and attendance has dropped by, as I say, by around about 10,000 a game because people are there to see her. People aren't there to see anybody else. And I don't know if it's just because it's maybe a bitter pill to swallow for some of the older generation in the WNBA who have tried to build this league up and have had varying levels of success. It still makes a loss in terms of the profit. It's still heavily funded by the NBA. I guess the majority of its financial backing is from the NBA and the money that the NBA makes. But at least with Caitlin Clark, there's now a person that they can sell and start generating their own hype. And for some reason, they're just hesitant to do so. And there's a negative backlash. I mean, Caitlin Clark is getting beaten up. Physically beaten up and bashed around.
Is that not just when you're the best in the world, that's what happens?
Yeah, definitely to an extent. And it's unfortunate. There are a lot of places that are trying to run a narrative of this is female jealousy, which I don't think it is. I don't think they're beating up on Caitlin Clark because there are just jealous women in the WNBA that are like, oh, I want to be the face, not you, or I used to be the face and it's not you anymore.
You think it's just like Messi got hacked down, Maradona got hacked down because they're the best?
Yeah, it's more that. But the trouble is that like there's no protection either. There's very little protection coming from the WNBA in terms of trying to limit. They were giving out in the NBA in basketball. You have different levels of flagrant fouls, and they were giving out like minimal level flagrant fouls when Caitlin Clark's literally getting like slammed to the floor and stuff like that, or like poked in the eye and all this kind of thing. And it's unacceptable. You have to protect the player. Particularly such a big asset as Caitlin Clark is, because we've already seen when she doesn't play, people don't pay attention. When she comes back to the sport after injury, everyone's paying attention because everybody wants to see how she's going to do after injury and all this kind of stuff. So the WNBA has to protect what is their most valuable asset at this point. And they can't leave her exposed to just getting beaten up and battered around the whole place. And to be honest, the WNBA players need to recognise how important Caitlin Clark is. They shouldn't give her an easy ride. It shouldn't be like, oh, okay, don't touch her or anything like that. But they also do need to say and recognise that she is the person that's going to change this sport for the better, to give it its own profile. And they need to kind of support that, whether it's being a pantomime villain or whether it's actually kind of helping to push her face somehow. I don't know how. But even the WNBA commissioner is kind of saying things like, she came out with this weird reason that attendances were up because of the information that is now being put out over the WNBA's new app. And it's like, it's not about the app and the data analysis. It's about Caitlin Clark. She's transcending the game in a really good way for you. let this happen, basically.
All right, that definitely sheds some light. It's a really interesting one. Let's talk a bit of tennis, Ollie, before we go other sports. Look, Wimbledon starts a week today, so we'll do a bit of a Wimbledon preview next Monday's pod. One thing that has really caught the eye and I think transcended tennis this week is the story that involved Katie Boulter, the British tennis player. But this is really far more widespread, really. And it's to do with gambling and social media. Now, the British tennis player Katie Boulter, she showed the BBC the ridiculous scale of abuse that she receives across socials. I mean, stuff that you cannot believe that someone's allowed to say that and get away with it, essentially. You know, in a world where you've got everyone's IP addresses, like, you cannot be DMing people with death threats and aggression and violence. Like, absolutely disgusting stuff, right? Don't quite know why. Well, I know why it exists because it's very complex and it's a whole free speech, debate and regulation of social media companies, etc. But Katie Boulter was, I think, very brave in kind of raising this, showing the BBC the messages she got. But the uncomfortable part of this is that the vast majority of those messages, Ollie, are because of the gambling on the sport. Now, people gamble on tennis, and when someone bets $1,000 that Katie Boulter's going to win and she doesn't, then they will go on Twitter and they will message her and say obscene things. Now, what's uncomfortable about that is that sport in general and tennis have kind of got in bed with the gambling companies, right? So I do think it raises a question of, I'm not saying that these sports organizations have a responsibility to control what random people around the world DM sports stars with. They don't. But at the same time, I do think there has to be an understanding that if sports companies are going to get into bed with these gambling companies, then you are, for example, 100 million is bet on tennis matches around the world every single day. 100 million British pounds every day is bet on tennis matches. And that hasn't happened by accident. That hasn't people just haven't woken up and decided to bet on tennis. Like, that has not happened by accident. That has been driven by a lack of gambling regulation. It's been driven by the business and the market and these gambling companies pushing their product on people. And sporting organizations, I'm not just picking on tennis here, it's across the sporting world, are taking gambling companies' money. So I don't know what the solution is here. It's incredibly complex. I'm not really calling anyone out because I don't think that sporting institutions have a moral obligation not to partner with gambling companies. I don't. But equally, it's completely not acceptable that Katie Boulter opens her phone after a tennis match that she's lost and receives death threats. And we could blame the social media companies, and yes, they have a responsibility, but I think you need to look at it more holistically because it's pretty gross, man. I
wondered why the top of your head was getting cropped off today. It's because you're taking this moral high ground every single topic, Dave Windsor. This is beautiful to see. It's like a man. It's like the Grinch has found his heart or something. It grew 3 times larger overnight. I mean, of course, like the abuse that sports stars take in general is pretty fucking ugly. I mean, there was something actually just reverting back to that WNBA chat. Angel Reese has trademarked the phrase "me bounds" because basically she gets more rebounds than points per game, but a lot of the rebounds that she gets are off her own shots. And all of her kind of detractors were giving her abuse on the internet about how bad she is at the sport and all this kind of stuff, and saying, "Oh, they're all me bounds rather than rebounds." And so she has trademarked the phrase "me bounds" and will be making money off that. In a kind of, I'm going to turn the haters' hate into financial gains for me, which is very smart. Now, there's not many people that can probably do that. Like, the abuse that Katie Boulter's getting probably can't be trademarked and turned into a nice phrase or something like that.
Can I just say quickly as well, obviously I've taken the moral high ground here. It's a good job we're not a super famous podcast yet, Ollie, because if we were, someone could trawl back through my professional career and see how much money I've taken from the gambling companies. So, I am as culpable and hypocritical as anyone else on the planet. But while the pod's still growing, we can get away with this stuff without being called out. So I'm calling out myself.
But
is it the social media companies, Ollie? Is it their responsibility? Elon Musk owns X. He needs to find a way to stop people sending death threats to someone via DM on X. Is it his fault?
There is something to be said about the lack of, restrictions on social media of being able to post stuff like that. But then you get into an argument around free speech. I think
also, it's like, is it Bill Gates' fault if someone sends an email to someone with a death threat, right? Like, like on an Airbnb, if someone kills someone in an Airbnb, is it Airbnb's responsibility because they're the platform? I don't know, man. It's difficult.
But the fact that the sports in general and sports across the globe are so ingratiated with online gambling now. I mean, it was something that US sports, because obviously gambling was illegal in so many states, were so far removed from. And now there is an official casino of the NFL. There is the official bookie of the NBA. And they've seen a huge amount of money coming in to the NBA and into sponsors because of the amount of extra money now that is coming in because of legalized gambling in the US. And, you know, we have extra advert breaks in football coverage where just as the teams are shaking hands, we nip off to have Ray Winston give us the live odds for Bet365 before we then come back for the team sheets, all this kind of stuff. So it's so heavily prominent within the sport that more than anything, it's not, I wouldn't say it's the social media companies. I'd say it is the sports heads themselves have been willing to now start suckling from the gambling teat without thinking about the impact that it has on their games. Because it's not just, the online abuse is one thing. You know, it's terrible. I'm not trying to belittle that at all.
But the detrimental impact on people's lives.
Well, there's a detrimental impact on people's lives. There's the way that it affects the sports in general. I mean, gambling has been affecting sports for generations now. You think about the number of games, college basketball games, that were rigged by the mafia in the New York and Boston area back in the 80s and 70s, for instance.
That's a documentary I need to check out, Ollie.
Yeah, it's a really good one from ESPN, on the ESPN 30 for 30. But it's also mentioned in movies like Goodfellas and stuff like that Scorsese made to be historically accurate about, you know, we're doing something up north with some basketball. You know,
I mean, horse racing doesn't exist without gambling. You know, it's been there since the dawn of time.
Well, even so, you know, people are trying to put off golfers on the course because they've put a bet on somebody finishing on a certain, like 4 over or 4 under, and so they want the person to miss that putt. So it's now starting to affect the sport that we watch and have that impact in the same way of like a documentarian shouldn't ever interfere with what they're documenting in terms of the natural world.
Let the penguins die rather than, yeah.
But yeah, so God, that's a bleak way of putting it.
It was on a BBC doc recently when a BBC wildlife
they built the steps so the penguins could get out.
Yeah.
No, I might just clip that as part of the intro. Just let the penguins die.
We should rename the pod, mate, to Let the Penguins Die. We'll get more clicks. Can I just quickly, just because if people, our listeners, some will be into gambling, some will have a flutter on the Grand National, some won't care at all, some will work for gambling sites. Just to fully put this into scale, Ollie. So like in the UK alone, the gambling industry is worth 15 billion a year. Okay, that's double the UK music industry. Okay, so it's 15 billion alone. I mean, the 5th richest person in the UK and the richest woman is Denise Coates, the owner of Bet365. She's the 257th richest human being on the entire planet, by the way. You know, with a valuation of 10 billion to her name. So, I mean, this is mega money we're talking. It's a huge industry. And we know, like, Big Pharma, my God, I'm on the soapbox today, but like the Big Pharma, the big food, all of this stuff, Ollie. When there's a machine that's that big, it's very, very difficult to stop because there's money everywhere and it's infiltrated everything. You can't stop it. I'm not saying we should stop it, but if you, like I say, I don't think with all this stuff, like I support people's right to drink energy drinks and eat donuts and gamble away their life savings. I think people should be allowed to do that if they so choose. But it is certainly worth highlighting that the gambling industry is so big, it's incomprehensible.
Do you know how many Premier League sides last season were sponsored by gambling companies their shirt?
Got to be at least 10.
11. Over 50% of them were gambling sponsors on their shirt. Which, you know, gone are the days of us growing up, Sanderson Electronics or, you know, Beko televisions or whatever. It's so often you see it, like gambling companies that are nothing to do with the UK, you know, Chinese Asian gambling companies where it's in Mandarin on the shirt for an Asian audience that are watching the Premier League at 8 o'clock at night to start gambling. I mean, it's just...
I was going to mention crypto as well, but that's not gambling because Bitcoin's going to the moon by 2050. We all know that. So, yeah, stack as much as you can now.
NFTs, though, well, they're not even gambling. It's a Ponzi scheme.
I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ollie. On this pod, I never said I thought NFTs were going to be a long-term play.
No, I don't. I think you were smart enough to at least stay clear of the NFTs.
What niche financial advice would you give to our listeners? Something that you think might rocket in the next decade or two?
I don't know. If you can invest in housing, it's just safe, isn't it?
No, niche, mate. Niche.
Yeah, I don't know. I know. A different looking football shirts that come out now that you say right now, buy it. Because in 20 years' time, that'll be worth 250 quid easily. The number of football shirts I've thrown away that have been like, fuck, that's like 170 quid now. Like,
there's some bonkers stuff like Pokemon trading cards or like some Lego outperform the S&P 500 over a long enough time period. Like, obviously you can't possibly guess that stuff, or like certain types of whiskey. If you held that long enough, it is actually better than the FTSE 100. Like some bonkers stuff, hard to predict indeed.
Yeah. I'm not a financial analyst, by the way. There is no way actual free financial advice. Do not take my advice or Dave's. Well, Dave, I don't know. Do you back yourself? On Bitcoin?
What's that quote? Don't invest in anything that flies or fornicates. Basically, if you can avoid that, don't invest in anything that flies, floats, or fornicates. I think is a good one. So don't buy a boat, a plane, or waste your money in those kind of ways. Fair. Anyway, this has been
this is getting around the house.
A melting pot of a pod. Ollie, any other business?
Tommy Fleetwood this week. Oh, you wanted to talk Alcaraz as well. Let's stay on tennis.
Just very briefly, as I say, we'll talk more tennis next Monday, I'm sure, in the build-up to Wimbledon. Alcaraz won at Queen's. I think what we saw with the Alcaraz-Sinner final at the French Open was one of the most astonishing games of male tennis in years and years, and really the statement match, really, after the big three, even though Djokovic is still playing, but after that big three's kind of fallen away now when Nadal and Federer retired, and Djokovic very close to retiring as well. So that the French Open final was incredible, and actually I think it's done Wimbledon kind of a favour, Ollie, because it's created. Wimbledon doesn't need a favour; it's its own massive thing in its own right. But it is still the most watched tennis match every single year, Ollie, is either the final of the US Open or the final of Wimbledon in the men's, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think that what happened in the French Open with Alcaraz and Sinner will just create this really nice days in 1 week before Wimbledon, because that is the clear final that could and will be played, I believe, at Wimbledon, unless Djokovic or Draper or maybe Zverev can do something. So, yeah, Alcaraz looking good. I mean, he's an amazing tennis player. And Wimbledon on the men's side, I'll have to delve a bit more into the women's side, but Wimbledon on the men's side should be fascinating this year.
What about Draper and the guts and determination he showed playing in that semi-final, suffering from tonsillitis? Is that a good thing, or is that unnecessarily stressing his body going into a Wimbledon? Does that take down the expectation level slightly of what he's going to do in the next couple of weeks or so?
I think if it was something like hydration or exhaustion, it might have been okay, because he's a young man and a week, that's out your body in 24, 48 hours. Tonsillitis, as I understand it, never had it, but obviously I know people that have. It's a bit of an odd one because it's a lingerer. Like, you don't just get over that in 2 days. So I'd worry a little bit if I was Draper. He's got a week now to recover from tonsillitis, and as I understand it, it is I don't know if it's a virus or an illness or infection, however it's defined. It is something that doesn't necessarily go away in like 2 or 3 days, and it is a longer process. So I'd be a little bit concerned there. I mean, for Draper, I've mentioned it a million times, but Wimbledon's a great chance for him. Home soil, big serve. He'll go into it, I think, seeded 4, which just shows that even though it wouldn't even be a surprise if he gets to the final and wins it, right? Because when you're the 4th seed, I mean, it would be a surprise. But Draper, a bit concerning, but I think he's a young man. He's got a week to recover. Hopefully he'll be all right.
It is an infection most of the time, tonsillitis, which that's antibiotics or an operation to remove the tonsils kind of thing. I mean, that's...
They don't do that anymore, apparently, by the way.
Oh, really? I mean,
that used to be the thing when we were kids, didn't it?
Well, I know they're trying to limit the amount of surgery that takes place in general. Like, I had a minor piece of surgery last week, and it was something that was done at a GP's previously, kind of 15 years ago, and now I had to go to a hospital because they won't allow surgery to take place in a GP because they're worried about potential for infection is not quite as clean as a hospital and sterilised, which I was a bit like, well, it's still a doctor's office. Like, it should be pretty sterile and stuff. So I think they are trying to limit.
We're not going to NHS rants here, are we?
No. But it's more the kind of use of antibiotics. They would rather flush stuff out with antibiotics more and more, which then actually, well, maybe we are getting to NHS because that leads to the continuation of the breakdown of the use of antibiotics and how less useful it becomes almost if you keep
because we've overprescribed them for a generation.
Yeah, and that is why Draper might not have the antibiotics that are really going to heal him up in time for Wimbledon, which is why I'm saying keep your expectation levels low. The more you know, the more information you have on this.
As he pulls out of third round contest at Wimbledon, something like that.
Should have had the tonsils out and they wouldn't let me. I had to go private. I couldn't afford Bupa. I think he's probably doing all right, to be honest. He's probably got some Bupa healthcare.
Absolutely. Talk to me about Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah, poor Tommy Fleetwood. Has a 2-shot lead going into the final day on the PGA Tour this weekend. He ends up 2 over par through the first 4 holes, and Tommy Fleetwood ends up. So Tommy Fleetwood's never won on the PGA Tour. He's won on the DP World Tour, on the European Tour a few times, but he is the player with the most number of top 10s in PGA Tour history without winning. He's had over 40 top 10s on the PGA Tour and not won. And a lot of people kind of think that he's a nearly guy, might not make it. He's a beautiful golfer when everything is on song for Tommy Fleetwood. He's not like a huge hitter, but he's a really graceful iron player when he's on song. And he's a really nice character in the game as well. I think everybody who's interacted with him and seen him interact with the general public and in interviews, he comes across as a very, very normal guy, which makes him very much beloved by the British public. And it's almost frustratingly heartbreaking that this really nice guy, this obviously very good golfer, who's good enough to play in Ryder Cup teams, make big impressions at Ryder Cup teams. I mean, he won the point that won the Ryder Cup for Europe 2 years ago. You know, it's really tough to have seen him get so near and yet so far. And this weekend on the 18th, he's got a 1-shot lead going down 18. Hits a drive straight into the fairway. Keegan Bradley is the guy who's kind of in contention with him. They're playing in the same group together, the final group of the Travelers Championship. Keegan Bradley is the US's Ryder Cup captain for this year coming up. So the grandstands of this kind of amphitheatre of an 18th going around the green, all you're hearing is this USA, USA, go on Keegan. And obviously as a European golf fan and as a Tommy Fleetwood fan, it's like, oh, just shut up. Just let him freaking hit shots. And people are like chirping off at Tommy just before he's about to, oh, Tommy, you're not going to freaking do it, are you? It's all about Keegan, baby, and all this kind of thing. And Fleetwood's second shot into the green ends up coming up short. He's right on the very front edge of the green. He's got a really long putt. And Bradley sticks one probably to about 10 foot from the flag on an uphill putt. And the worst thing happens for Fleetwood because he's got a really long putt into this flag. So all he needs to do is make sure that he either gets his ball past Keegan Bradley's inside of 10 foot to the flag so that Bradley doesn't get a read of Tommy's putt. So if Tommy then makes a par, Bradley makes birdie, at least it will go to a playoff. It would have been a 3-way playoff with Russell Henley is there as well, who's in that group and obviously and on 14 under as well. But what Fleetwood does is he does the worst possible thing. With his first putt, rolls his ball right up to Keegan Bradley's ball marker, but it's just behind Bradley's ball marker. So Fleetwood then is giving Keegan Bradley a free look at the putt, which then Fleetwood then misses, finishes up with a bogey, and Bradley, who's had the clear sight of Fleetwood's putt, makes birdie and it's a 2-shot swing and ends up winning it. And it's like, you had everything in your hands and you didn't match up in the big moment, and instead you made the worst possible move of the kind of final chessboard of that golf tournament.
His career really is like a nearly thing, isn't it? I'm just reading. He was also an Olympic silver medalist last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where, like, is it not having that, like, savage, ruthless nature?
Or is it just a lottery of life, man?
Well, that's the other thing. I mean,
Van der Velde doesn't go in the water and he wins it's just, there's a randomness to life, no? To
an extent, but golf things are in your control as well. I mean, he underclubs on that shot in on 18 and didn't maybe take account for the wind, or just, didn't try to, was worried perhaps about the extra adrenaline running through him, so took a club less. That can also happen. And actually, you just have to make sure that you're on that green and have a half decent look at birdie, and he didn't. And it's those clutch moments that separate the Tommy Fleetwoods from the Caitlin Clarks in sport. Really, that's what makes you a winner. It's the same as we were talking about Sinner and Alcaraz. Alcaraz has those Keegan Bradley finishes in him to come back from the jaws of defeat, whereas Sinner perhaps is the more consistent. A Fleetwood top 10s and second places on every other tournament will put you in great standings in the world rankings, but it won't put your name into the history books.
One thing I did want to talk about, Ollie, I'm not sure if you saw this, the Serie B relegation playoff between Sampdoria and Salernitana was abandoned. I don't know if you saw this.
No, I didn't see this.
When I read stories like that is, why is a game like that happening at the end of June? Is there not enough time in the season to be able to wrap it up? I mean, despite the fact that Italy gets pretty hot, nudging, certainly Salernitana in the south will be, pretty warm. So why has that gone on? And so the second leg of the Serie B relegation playoff between Salernitana and Sampdoria was abandoned on Sunday after home fans threw smoke bombs and seats onto the pitch, as you do. Why is it so late, though? Do you know that? Why does it work like that?
That I don't know. I mean, the Serie A season obviously finishes.
It's the same in Spain, right? Did you see Oviedo got promoted? And
I wanted to bring up the 40-year-old Santi Cazorla getting his boyhood team promoted again 20 years after.
But why is that being played
leaving?
end of June in Spain? A bit odd.
Isn't it a case that the league season finishes quite late anyway in these European leagues, and then it's quite an extended playoff scenario because it's a 6-team playoff rather than a 4-team playoff with home and away legs, I think, on some of them. So you end up with quite an elongated playoff run. I mean, it's still very late at the end of June, but yeah, you do. I mean,
we're getting to the point where, if we're not there already, there's just football every week. Like, there's just football every week. You maybe will get in future the last 2 weeks of July, first week of August. I think we're wandering into a time where the only time there's genuinely no football is sort of mid-July to first weekend in August.
But there are games in mid-July, like the friendlies coming back, and those friendlies for the top clubs are going to be tours against other big teams in other big countries. Yeah, so it doesn't stop. I mean, I love the fact that sport's 24/7, but one sport being 24/7 is, even for me, it's too much, Dave.
We're in trouble if Ollie Wilson says it's too